Assalamu alaikum. This is the second part of the series talking about Sahil Adeem's address at London School of Economics. So we have to dive deep into the Islamic history if we want to understand the bigotry of Sahil Adeem, who is associated with the conservative school of Islam, or more precisely, he's allied with the fanatical elements of the religion like Maulana Maududi and Dr. Israr and other people. But before that, we must dive into Islamic history. So in 699, Imam Azam, 699 AD, Imam Azam Abu Hanifa was born. In 8th century, we had a certain individual whose name was Wasil bin Atta. Wasil bin Atta was a disciple of Imam Basri, Hassan Basri, and then he, in a way, split up with the Basri, and came to be known as Mozalite, which means that the people who have withdrawn themselves. And Mozala or Mozalite was basically a particular school of thought in Islam or Islamic history that, to some extent, believed in rationality. They had four or five core belief, with monotheism being the first. Then they talk about free will. They said that God has given free will to mankind, and there cannot be any justice if mankind has not been given free will. So they were, on the other hand, a literalist school of thought, or traditionalist school of thought, who believe that there is no free will and that everything has been written or everything has been predetermined. So they believed in predestination of mankind, predestination of man. But on the other hand, rationalist school of thought or Mozarite believed in free will. The second concept of theirs was that both Sharia and rationality could lead towards the better of humanity. For instance, if Sharia says that you are not supposed to oppress anyone, you are not supposed to steal or rob anyone, you are not supposed to snatch somebody's rights. So that is also for the betterment of humanity. But on the other hand, if through rationality you in a way make scientific development, or you come up with some vaccine, so that is also in a way for the betterment of humanity. So they believed that both Sharia and rationality could offer the truth, and both Sharia and rationality could help mankind develop. And then they had an idea about the sinner with the Kharji or the heretic believing that they are non-Muslim. There were others who would say that they would be hellish, but these guys, uh, the rationalists, believed that they would be in the middle position, which may be known as fasik. So these were some of their core beliefs. And rationalists, they somehow got government as well, with three caliphs of the Abbasid subscribing to the ideas of rationalists. Unfortunately, they also carried out minha or persecution. It was not as terrible as that of Spanish Inquisition, because the Spanish Inquisition claims hundreds of thousands of lives according to Protestant critics. But even the conservative estimate suggests that it was at least more than 100,000. Well, some conservative estimates suggest it runs into tens of thousands or at least thousands. So during that persecution on Minha, some traditional clerics were subjected to persecution, physical punishment, imprisonment as well, and interrogation was carried out, and the caliphs of that time tried to impose that ideology. It was, of course, a blunder. And then these people also, the Mozalite or rationalists, also believed that reason or intellect is the best gift of God, and we should follow everything, and we should follow reason in all matters of life. Yes, one more, sorry, difference between literalist and rationalist was related to attributes of God, with the literalists claiming that if God has said in the Holy Quran, I have hands, or I can see, or I'm sitting in a crown, or sorry, I'm sitting on a chair. So God is sitting. You cannot ask any question. If God says that He can hear, you don't have to question. If He says He can see, you don't have to question. While these rationalists believe that if God says that He can see, it might refer to His sagacity or wisdom. If God says I have hands, it might refer to His assistance, to His help. If God says that He is sitting on a chair, it might refer to God's sovereignty, to God's autonomy, to God's powers. So they would say that these verses of the Holy Quran are metaphorical. They should not be taken in literal sense. So the basic difference between these rationalists was that they wanted so many things, or they believed that so many things in the Holy Quran were metaphorical, and literalists led by Imam Hanbal, Abul Hasan Ashari, Ghazali, and later on Ibn Taymiyyah, they believed no, if God has said so, they would take everything literally. So that's why they are also known. They also came to be known as literalists. So we had rationalists on the one hand and literalists on the other hand. And then these rationalists were somehow as they were with the certain caliphs of the Abbasid, when their power declined, they also declined in a way in some parts of the Muslim world, but their rationalist ideas had already made way into Al Andalusia or southern Spain, into parts of Central Asia, and their Muslims started, debating different philosophical aspects. By that time, a number of Greek thoughts had also found a way, into Islamic world with later on, philosophers like Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, or Averroes, or Avicenna, as he is known in Western world. They had written a lot on Aristotle and other Greek philosophers. So the reason as to why I'm telling you about this history, because most of the Muslim world today is dominated by the thoughts of literalists, Imam Hanbal, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik. Sahil Adeem himself is a follower of Imam Shafi. His family is from a Shiite school of thought or Shiite sect of Islam. His father was a poet, and he was a known Shiite figure in Pakistan. But Sahil Adeem himself converted to Shafi Islam, which is very conservative, or Shafi Mazhab, or religion, which is very conservative in many matters. So Muslim had four major school of thought, or they are also called religions: Hamli, Shafi, Maliki, and Hamli, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanafi. Hanafi being the oldest one, because Imam Azam Abu Hanifa was born in 699. Now, interestingly, the biggest Imam, or the greatest Imam of Sunni Islam, Imam Azam Abu Hanifa, was declared a kafir and zindiq, or sort of heretic or infidel, by the son of Imam Hanbal, Abdullah bin Hanbal. Many Sunni do not want to talk about this, many Muslims do not want to talk about it. He was declared an incurable disease by one of the guys who compiled hadith or tradition. Imam Bukhari called him an incurable disease. And other mullah also declared him a kafir. And what was the reason? He used analogical reasoning. He and Wasil bin Atta were more or less contemporary. He was born in 699, Wasil bin Atta was born in 700. So they were contemporary. So this was the historical background. So because of Mausolite, Muslim produced a lot of scientists, a lot of philosophers, a lot of logicians, a lot of people with critical thinking, with Ibn Sina, writing Canon of Medicine, which dominated Western intellectual landscape for hundreds of years. In a way, some historian go to the extent of saying that it dominated until 17th century, some saying that until 15th century. Anyway, that was there. And these Muslim rationalists believed in collaborating in the matter of philosophy, in the matter of knowledge, in the matter of sciences. That's why in the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, you can find Hindu experts or philosophers or yogis, Jewish skeptics, agnostics, Christian, both Jacobite and Maronite. One of the top translators was a Christian. And so they collaborated. The same happened in Al Andalusia, where Muslim collaborated with Jews, with Christian. In fact, one of the top leaders of Christianity of that time, of medieval time, he graduated from a Muslim institute. So naturally, these institute were not teaching Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmizi, and these all subjects. They were talking about philosophy. They were talking about critical thinking, logic, science, physics, chemistry, and other subjects. So Muslim world, because of the rationalist movement, it may have died after the demise of the three caliph or after the power of three caliph decline, but it spread like a wildfire across the Muslim world, producing a lot of scientists, a lot of experts of chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, and they believed in learning in the from anyone, and they would say that knowledge is not dominated by a particular religion or particular school of thought. You can get knowledge wherever it is available. So that's why you find, so these Muslim scientists were not reluctant in learning, let's say, mathematics from Brahmagupta, who was a Hindu, and philosophy from Aristotle, who was polytheist from our standard, Plato, again, who was from a polytheistic religion, Ptolemy, who was again not Muslim. But on the other hand, from the same movement, two individuals separated themselves, and Abul Hasan Ashari and Imam Ghazali. The Ghazali heaped scorn on philosophy later on. Well, there are different interpretation about the type of line that Ghazali had taken, with some equating him with Immanuel Kant, who asserted that we can understand the world of phenomenology because we can see it, feel it, taste it, or hear about it. So there is a world of phenomenology that is open to us and accessible to us, so we can develop analysis on the world of phenomenology. But there is another word, nomenology, which cannot be perceived or seen. So this is what some critics believe, that Ghazali said more or less that you cannot find God or spirit, or you cannot understand metaphysical elements by applying Greek logic or by resorting to scientific ideas. But there are other people who criticize him for being totally irrational. For instance, he said that it is inherent in cotton that it will burn, but there could be some times when it doesn't burn. While other Muslim philosophers believe that whenever you lit the cotton, it would definitely burn. It is necessary for the cotton to burn. That is inherent. Uh, Ghazali in reality wanted to prove miracles because miracles were unusual. So that's why he said that God does acts. God does act, on a certain pattern which is close to human reason, but sometimes there could be pattern of God which is not understandable to human reason. So, for instance, a bird will always fly. To give you a simple example, but there could be a time when a donkey could fly. I mean, if you follow the logic of Ghazali, like he says that if you burn a cotton, it will burn. But there could be times when it doesn't burn. Our observation shows that it will always burn. This is what the position of people like, let's say, Ibn Sina or Ibn Rushd was, for example. So Ghazali was irrationalist. Some American physicists have said that Ghazali in reality was of the opinion that mathematics is devilish, though there are people who contest it, who believe that that's not the case. So Ghazali somehow experienced some supernatural uh, elements in his life, and then he thought that there are certain things which are supernatural, which are metaphysical, which cannot be understood. So he started declaring his opponents infidels or out of Islam or heretic. So takfiriyat, or the habit of issuing decrees, religious decrees against your opponents, started with Ghazali in philosophical world. It existed prior to him, because naturally Imam Azam Abu Hanifa was declared kafir by uh, none other than the son of Imam Hanbal. And Imam Hanbal also did not have very good opinion about Abu Hanifa, and he was very skeptical towards him because Abu Hanifa hardly quoted 18 hadiths, and he did not quote a lot of hadiths. He was more into human reason, more into Quran, and more into analogical reasoning, and for that he was also declared a kafir. So then Ghazali and Abul Hasan Ashari, their school of thought somehow dominated. He wrote the famous book against philosophers, which was uh, contradicted by Ibn Rushd. But the difference there you will notice, for instance, if Ibn Sina has written anything, he did not declare his opponent kafir or infidels. The same could be said about Ibn Rushd. They may have been harsh in their criticism. They did not do that. Ghazali did that. And then Ghazali also established, not Ghazali exactly, but Madrasa Nizamiya or Nizamiya College was established by Nizam al-Muktusi, and Ghazali was appointed as first principal, according to some historian. Some other historians say that he was just a lecturer there, and he came up with a very conservative syllabus for his students. Now, people could argue that Ghazali was a scientific minded person, but the question is that the madrasa or the college where he used to teach did not produce any scientist or any man of critical thinking or any philosopher with towering personality. While rationalists, you can criticize them, the sort of traditions that they established went on producing, scientists, people with critical thinking, expert of physics, chemistry, mathematics, and other subjects. So after Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah uh, was also a sort of fanatic who declared so many people out of Islam. He declared Shiite out of Islam, Druze out of Islam. Even the Mongols who had converted to Islam, he declared them out of Islam, and also Barelvis, the people who used to go to shrines, they were also declared infidel. So and again, Ibn Taymiyyah was also close to the ideology of Imam Hanbal, Shafi'i, Maliki. He himself was Hanbali, but there are like minor differences among Sunnis. Deobandi, Barelvi, and Wahhabis, they are all called Sunnis, right? But then within them, there are, petty differences, or some people might say big differences, because Wahhabi believe in Tawheed or monotheism. So that's why they think that most of the Barelvis are not Muslim, because they go to Shrine, they believe in mysticism, they believe in supernatural power of mystics. So that's why they say that. And then, of course, there are so many differences over the question of ilmul ghaib, with the Barelvi saying that Muhammad, peace be upon him, had it, God had given it, and Deobandi and Wahhabi saying no, that was not the case. And then many Barelvis believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a radiant light or a divine light. He was created from a divine light, while Deobandi and Wahhabi believe that he was just an ordinary human being. So, and then there are, of course, issues over Taraweeh, over divorce, over saying Ameen during the prayers. So the reason of this detail is that so that you could understand where is Sahil Adeem coming from. He's coming from fundamentalist school of thought or conservative school of thought. He himself subscribes to the ideas of Imam Shafi, who was a conservative. And to give you one example, for instance, if somebody misses his prayer or does not pray, so Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki have very harsh punishments for him. Abu Hanifa might suggest some, lighter punishments for him. But Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki, they are harsh. And Ibn Taymiyyah, like Ghazali, he was also one of the founders of Takfiriyat. So he declared Shiite, Barelvis, Mongols who had converted to Islam, Druze, and mystics as non-Muslim and infidels. He went to the extent of declaring some of the Asharites as non-Muslim, although Asharites were also conservative Muslims. So he also went to the extent of declaring them kafir. So to understand the ideology of this fanatical figure, Sahil Adeem, you need to understand in Islamic history that there were two school of thought: literalist school of thought and rationalist school of thought. Rationalist school of thought produced a lot of scientists, while literalist school of thoughts produced fanatical elements. They were the ones who came up with the conservative interpretation of Islam. So it's important for the student of LSE to know the historical background of this guy so that you could understand his religious bigotry. So this is part two. I'll come up with part three as well.